Wow, I'm a jerk.
No, you're good. For those of you that somehow didn't see it, Sutton dives into the end zone with
Oh, you
Hayward
mean the
basically
one-handed
draped on his
curl?
back.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Catches it with one hand, curls it up against his neck, somehow pins it against his helmet through contact on the
He D-hopped
ground.
it.
It was ridiculous. And then, of course, your boy Devontae Adams getting it done. 2 touchdowns against the Giants, playing in the snow, having fun. Um, Moving into the guys who called out this week. Yeah, if you decided it was a good week to play Nick Foles because he was taking on the almost last ranked Tampa Bay pass rush, yeah, pass defense, you made a big mistake. Foles went 7 for 14, 0 touchdowns, and ended up getting benched. I believe it was the third quarter. Gardner Minshew came in and really gave this team the spark that it needed. Jacksonville almost came back in this game, guys, just because of the stash and the swag that he brings, the confidence level. I'm not sure what's up with Foles. It seemed like they were prepared. I believe this was after a bye week. They were all good to go. No, I'm sorry, 2 weeks removed from the bye week. But yeah, all the Philly fans out there hating on Wentz, saying that we should have kept Foles and blah, blah, blah. And I know it just gets brought up over and over again. Well, you see now that Foles is good in a certain role, okay? He's a reserve quarterback when you need someone to step in after holding the clipboard and just give you a few passes here and there. Made a great run in the playoffs for Philly. You know, love the guy for that. Gave him our first Super Bowl, got the statue. Can't thank him enough. But when all is said and done, for the entirety of a season, Nick Foles is not the guy to lead your team through chaotic times. And we saw it this last week. 2 fumbles, an interception. It was ugly. Derek Carr called out. Had himself a bad game against a vulnerable KC defense. Only 22 touchdowns, 222 yards through 2 picks. Only a single touchdown in this game. Sam Darnold in a pretty inviting matchup versus the Bengals dudded out. A lot of people were counting on Sam Darnold this week in a juicy matchup. Only threw for 239 yards, 0 touchdowns. And Jameis Winston against the Jacksonville Jaguars, no touchdowns for him either. Moving into the running backs who called out, unfortunately, although the Green Bay Packers had a little fun in the snow, it was at the expense of Aaron Jones, who, again, a lot of people were counting on in this matchup to make it to their fantasy playoffs. Aaron Jones with 18 yards on the ground, 13 yards through the air. It was pretty ugly. He and Jamal Williams are in a straight-up timeshare, guys. I don't know what else to tell you. It's pretty hard to predict at this point. There's really no game script. They both kind of do the same thing. Le'Veon Bell did not have a good game at all against those same Cincinnati Bengals. It was pretty disappointing. A guy who was drafted very high, first rounder for most people. It's been kind of an underwhelming year. I mean, he's been a good RB2 somewhat, but only 32 yards on the ground, 35 yards through the air. Jonathan Williams, guys, after 2 straight 100-yard performances, completely duds out against the Tennessee Titans, only 14 yards on the ground, and they ended up going to the other backs on the team. Nyheim Hines had a touchdown, and Jordan Wilkins got 11 carries in this game. Mark Ingram, obviously, you knew it was going to be tough versus the 49ers, but he only had 59 yards. Phillip Lindsay, 58 yards. And then finally, Tevin Coleman with 6 yards on 5 carries. Yikes. And finally, guys, moving into these wide receivers who called out, another disappointing week for OBJ. Big surprise, only 29 yards. It's going to be very intriguing to see what happens with him in the offseason. Michael Thomas, finally, the god of fantasy football this year, only 48 yards on 8 targets. He only had 6 catches. DJ Chark in that great matchup versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, only 47 yards on 2 catches. Mike Evans kind of, was an average week for most players, certainly a dud week for Mike Evans, only 53 yards. Chris Godwin in that same game, 50 yards. So both of your Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers disappointed. Tyreek Hill should have had himself a much better game against Oakland, only 55 yards himself. And then just a couple other guys who, aren't really worth mentioning, weren't counted on in these fantasy playoffs, but the likes of Terry McLaurin, Marquise Brown, and then you had Jamison Crowder in that inviting Bengals matchup. Could not get it done for you. So there you go, guys. That is who balled out and who called out in Week 13. Those crucial last
I didn't hear a name from you in a balled out.
You didn't hear a name from me?
Yeah, I'm surprised. And it was one of Jay's predictions.
Who were you waiting for?
Alan Lazard.
Oh, yes. Very good name to bring up. Yeah, the Lazard King himself. You guys got yourself a t-shirt yet?
Did you really just do the wah, 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 wah?
Hey, he called it, and it came to fruition.
Hey, I had to show him credit, man. He said, you asked us, who do you think is going to get the extra passes besides Devontae? And Lazard took 3 catches over 100 yards and a touchdown. I mean, what else do you want in fantasy?
That is very true. I mean, all those other guys scored, either had 2 touchdowns or 100 yards. So I just didn't make the cut, bro. Sorry.
Bruh. Okay, bruh.
There's always next week.
Yes. That's why we're sitting here staring at you like dogs for treats.
And if you haven't had enough of our banter tonight, you want to visit NFL Addictions on Facebook.com for all of your NFL banter and chatter. It's not a trash talk site, so keep it clean and keep it cordial. That's NFL Addictions on Facebook.com. And if you still got an itch to scratch when you're done with that, you want to visit Raz Addictions on Facebook.com for their version of the raffle for all kinds of cool prizes, even a chance at winning some cash. You buy a $10 raffle ticket for a chance at winning $100. That's a chance at making 10 times your money. It don't get any better than that. That's Raz Addictions on Facebook.com for a chance at all kinds of cool prizes. Tell them what you've won, Dave.
I've won everything from tailgating barbecue sets. That I have a Packers one that I won, folks, for $400. I put $40 down on the spot. I won it, and it was out of 20 spots. It's really worth it. I've also won helmets that are signed. I've won banners that are signed. I've won memorabilia rings. I've won footballs that are signed and other Packers knickknacks because that's my team. But go ahead and check them out. Cheap, affordable prices for certified, authentic stuff.
That's Raz Addictions on Facebook.com. Go there, play, and win. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter at First and Goal Pod, myself at UPJ33, Dave is at Steak and Cheese, and the fantasy wonder himself, Dillon, at Dillon Busby1. Email us at firstandgoalpodcast@yahoo.com with all your football and Packer questions and comments, and you just might find yourself making the show live. That's firstandgoalpodcast@yahoo.com. All right, we are back, and we are going to do what now, Dillon? Waiver wire pickups?
Nah, dude, we're going to save that for the next segment. Right now, we're going to do some starts and sits.
Ooh, startums and situms. All right, listen up, folks. This shit is crucial now. Get your rabbit ears up.
It is. I mean, you can't really stress it enough, and I don't think I have yet. This is week 14. This is the first week of most people's fantasy playoffs. You absolutely have to win this week to keep going, okay? It's one and done. It's the cliche we hear every year. Win or go home, yada, yada, yada. So here we go. QB starts for week 14 to win your playoffs. A-Rod versus Washington at home. No surprise here, guys. After a great week against the Giants, Rodgers is coming back home and taking on this Redskins defense that is likely going to be without Josh Norman. Yeah, they have some momentum going with these wins the past couple of weeks, but I don't think it's going to be enough to slow down Rodgers and this prolific Packers attack. Next up, after seeing what Deshaun Watson was capable of versus New England, I'm more than confident in starting him at home against the Broncos this week. I know Chris Harris is a guy who's been shutting people down at wide receiver, and we'll have to see how creative the Texans get at moving around DeAndre Hopkins. But really, we've seen Deshaun Watson does not just depend on DeAndre Hopkins, okay? When he's got a healthy Will Fuller and a healthy Kenny Stills, look out. This team moves the ball downfield.
Fells, too.
Yeah, Fells is a nice little underneath, safety valve.
Well, Gilmore's the best corner in the NFL. So if Hopkins is doing that to Gilmore, what's he going to do to Harris?
Oh, exactly. So Watson's a guy you can absolutely start with confidence this week at home against Denver. Moving into Lamar Jackson at Buffalo, guys. I was hesitant because, I think this could be, depending on what the weather is, you're talking about outside in Buffalo this late in the season. So there could be wind whipping around, maybe even a little bit of snow. We'll have to see what's happening. But even if that happens, Lamar Jackson is more than capable of getting it done on the ground, which is actually mostly why I'm endorsing him this week. Buffalo gives up plenty of yards on the ground. We've seen Lamar Jackson run for over 100 yards on several occasions this season. So if somehow, some way, he's not throwing multiple touchdown passes to the likes of Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown, then I think he's going to get it done on the ground for you.
I think Buffalo has an X factor the other teams don't.
As far as spying him?
Yep, Tremaine Edmonds. He's big enough. He's fast enough. He's able to have that length to reach out and try and get Lamar. The reason why San Fran couldn't do it because they didn't have Quan Alexander. Fred Warner is not the long, lanky type of linebacker you want spying on Lamar.
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, I do think Fred Warner's a pretty darn fast linebacker. He's not
fast,
as big as Edmonds. You're right.
That's what I'm saying. Tremaine is a freak of nature. So that's what I'm saying is I think they have the X factor there. I'm not saying it's going to work, but they have the piece in place to do it.
Nope.
And then
it's not just the piece, it's what you have to be willing to do. And I said it last week and I'll say it again. You have to go back to how you beat the 49ers when they originally debuted this with Greg Roman, who is their offensive coordinator. Even if it means taking penalties early in the game, you have to hit everybody in the backfield. You assign, you literally as a defense, you're not like doing like a bounty thing, but you literally as a defense, even if you're not going to blitz, you tell this guy, you're hitting the running back, you're hitting the quarterback. We're going to play balls out, and we're not going to stop. When we snap the ball, everybody in the backfield gets hit. Everybody. And what ends up happening is they stop calling those plays because right now Lamar Jackson, when he's doing it and they're trying to decide who to hit and they end up being frozen most of the time, he's smart. He doesn't take any hits. Well, then you're not getting him out of that offense. What you want to do is put them in a traditional offense because that's an advantage. Even if it's still balanced run and pass, you're taking Lamar Jackson's athleticism and his ability to pass behind the line of scrimmage at any point while he's scrambling away. And that's actually what you want if you're a defense. You'd much rather deal with him handing the ball off to Mark Ingram and worry about stopping just Mark Ingram, or him having to pass the ball and be in a traditional pass defense. But in order to do that, you have to start the game, even if it causes penalties. You just have to assign people to come and attack and hit everybody in the backfield on every play early until they decide they don't want him getting hit, so they're going to stop calling those types of plays. And you'll know they do it because of the different formations they run that kind of stuff out of. They'll get out of it, and you'll be able to tell. If you don't do that, the Ravens are just like the 49ers in 2012 when they debuted this with Greg Roman. Again, they're damn near unstoppable. But what did we see? When the NFL came out and told them in that offseason after the 13 thing too, they said, when the quarterback's at that mesh point and they're doing this read option, he doesn't get quarterback protection. You can hit him. Then everybody started hitting them, and it changed this whole idea that this was going to take over. And now we're getting away from it, and defenses have forgot that. They need to remember that's the way to attack this defense is just assign people. Stop standing around. Stop trying to make decisions. Just you get the running back, you got the quarterback, you got the fullback, you got the tight end, whatever formation, whoever's in the backfield, everybody has a guy assigned, and you hit him. You lay the wood on. Get a couple penalties, big deal, because eventually, early on, they're going to get out of that, especially when the quarterback's one of the guys taking hits.
Yeah, that's true.